Kyle here from All Media Reviews, Pure Reason Revolution Week. Here to talk about album number 5, but sort of backtrack the sort of sequence of events about Pure Reason Revolution. So after Hammer and Anvil came out in 2010, they put out an EP, but it was considered their final release because they had basically, I think when they announced it, the Valor EP, they announced that basically the band was going to call it a day, as they would say, or going on a hiatus. And Valor, actually, I thought I bought it, but I guess I didn't. But it did include a couple extra tracks. One titled Gaudette, which I've listened to before, but it's been basically probably since 2011. And it's kind of like an a cappella, Christmassy kind of piece. But there's another one called Tempest, which would fit really well on Hammer and Anvil. It's really good. It's got a heavy riff. It's very atmospheric. But I haven't listened to that. I don't know if I've even, like I said, I heard it maybe back it's on YouTube in 2011. But I remember that, and after them and Ocean Size announced they were done in 2011, it was just like, what's going on here with all my favorite bands breaking up? And then, of course, John Courtney and Chloe Alper, the primary, songwriters, the core of the band. I mean, the other members, of course, also helped out. Jamie Wilcox and the drummer Paul. Chloe, I guess she released some music as just under her own name, and then eventually collaborated with this guy from Cooper Temple Claus, Ellis or something like that. Formed a band called Tiny Giant. I think they may have played South by Southwest. And they put out like 4 singles. I don't know if they ever put out an EP, or they never put out full length under the name Tiny Giant. And John Courtney, I know he moved to Germany, where believe he still resides. And he was collaborating with this woman named Sammy Dahl, which I think she's from the band IAMX, or IMX. And they had this project called Bullet Height, which I listened to. I liked parts of it. It was more industrial music. I mean, it was even more heavily influenced by Nine Inch Nails than Pure Reason Revolution ever did. So, but I don't know how well some people like Bullet Height. I don't, Chloe and Tiny Giant and stuff, how far that ever really went. But then they did a couple reunion shows. I want to say the summer of 2019. It was either 2018 or 2019. And they just felt like they missed whatever. They felt like they wanted to work together again, so they decided, okay, we're going to get back together and start writing music. Kind of, the shock of many fans for many years, kind of hoping that it would happen. So in 2020, finally, they put out their next full-length, Eupnea. This is the record I pre-ordered when it came out. Unfortunately, this got damaged when in the mail. I didn't have insurance on it. I mean, I don't know, but I remember one of the first time this ever happened. I've ordered a lot of vinyl through the mail. This part, the part got damaged on the back, but Eupnea though. So, and it was John and Chloe, and of course it came out. It was April 3rd, 2020. So it was literally like a week after all the lockdown and all the COVID stuff. Like a week, less than 2 weeks. I know they had put out like a video or two. They'd signed to Inside Out Music, which kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't know their agreement with Super Bowl had ended or whatever. The Valor EP was the last thing they did on Super Bowl, but they're prog rock of a sort, so it makes sense. Inside Out would probably want to, and they knew there was a big fan base among people that like prog rock that liked a lot of the Inside Out bands. So, and so just to talk about this record, I mean, I know a lot of the interviews. There were a lot of like video interviews and articles and stuff I took in, because seeing them come back was like really exciting. And it was like, well, we're gonna. The new album, this album's called Eupnea. It's weird words about sleeping. It's like, means like calmly sleeping or sleeping comfortably, per se. It was sort of trying to channel or be inspired by their past, mostly the Dark Third especially. And I think that also energized some fans that weren't maybe as into the albums that came out after the Dark Third. So, and I really enjoyed it when I first heard it. I'll admit. However, partly largely to do with COVID and the whole like sort of mentality in the year 2020. I didn't necessarily give it the mileage, the time that I probably would have had that not happened. Because I was just, not like I wasn't listening to any music, but for like a good 3-4 months, I was just like apathetic. I was like, I'm done with blogging. Then I started thinking maybe I should start trying to do YouTube more, but I want to listen to like the music I love because the world is just, it's just strange and it's weird and it doesn't feel right. I need to remember my past. I was listening to a lot of older music some, and by the end of the year, other stuff had come out, like Vinard's record, his third full length, and then the Dirt Poor Robin's record especially, and then I was dealing with everything with beyond COVID stuff. My dog had to be put down and stuff, so it was weird. I think this record was like in my top 3 records for 2020, but I kind of look at 2020 as like a lost, like an asterisk year in a way, and I didn't listen to it as much as I probably would have. So, but getting into Eupnea itself, now revisiting it today and yesterday, it does channel a lot of the elements of the Dark Third, like slide. It sounds like slide guitar, those sort of guitar textures. I know Greg, a big part of this was Greg Jong, original founding member when they were the Sunset Sound. Greg Jong plays on this. That was partly what I think motivated John Courtney and everything to sort of like, I want to work with Greg again. We could do some Pure Reason stuff again. It's only 6 tracks, and so it tells you most of the songs are kind of longer. It's tough though. I gotta be honest about it. As much as I liked it in 2020 for when I listened to it, and I still like a lot about it, I struggle with some parts of it in that there aren't as many like sort of hooks, memorable parts. It's not as catchy or melodic as their previous records. I will say the exception of, you could say Maelstrom especially. That's a ballad. Which does resemble something like Bolas Domine or Goshen Remains, where it kind of builds, but it's very delicate and very kind of pretty. Talking about Domino. I keep thinking of Genesis, the song Domino, but that's a ballad, and that is more melodic and poppy. And I'd say Beyond Our Bodies also, which is a ballad. The other 4 the other 4 tracks, New Obsession, Silent Genesis, Ghosts and Typhoons, and Eupnea, all have like several moments I enjoy, but they also all kind of have, they're very dense. Like, this is a dense record. I'd say you can definitely tell that this is sort of the modern, like the late 2010s, it's denser than their previous 3 records by a lot. There's no question that the sound they've gone for since they reunited now has been about density, and I'm not saying it's a loudness wars, but and then the other thing is, of course, the guitars. The guitar riffs became really almost the primary sound on this record, more than any of the other records, which, for better or for worse, I like a lot of that, but at the same time it does get a bit much. But I'll say like Silent Genesis, there's some jazzy moments, like kind of interludes and toward the end, which are great. Some of the vocal lines, we do get Chloe Alper's sort of isolated vocals at points, which sounds not exactly like Fight Fire with Fire, but what I was referring to, it's not just her singing at like sort of higher range. We do get the harmonies. New Obsession has the texture. It starts. Every one of these songs seems to start out kind of calmly. Ghost and Typhoons, I think among these 4 tracks, in one way pulls off the sort of density and intensity best, because it's very haunting. It's whatever it is. It's 8 minutes and 45 seconds. It's something that you'd play for Halloween or something, a haunted house, and it's kind of very kind of cinematic sounding, and I think it works there's a lot of time changes in guitar textures, some industrial guitar textures, some clean guitar. But I mean, I think overall the vibe works best with those kind of dense guitars on Ghosts and Typhoons. Eupnea, though, the title track, I think when I revisited this record was like a year and a half ago, I concluded that's my favorite piece. And I think overall, I suppose that's true, because I think it's parts of it does resemble the Dark Third. I don't know, it's the longest piece. I think it flows the best in some ways. So I don't know. I mean, it's a weird record in that my experience like a couple of years ago listening to those Arch Matheos records after loving them initially and kind of feeling like this is too much. I've kind of gotten that sense with some Pure Reason Revolution's albums since they did this reunion, where it's just I like on what they're doing on paper to a point, but they've become so kind of into the textures, the layers, the loudness, that it does kind of, it gets to be a bit much. And but I don't know, it's a tough one. I think unlike the Arch Matheos records, I think still they're hitting more than they're missing still on this record, but kind of despite the fact there's not as many like hooks as on those first three records especially. But I mean, as a big fan of this band that loves this band, I would have, if I hated the record they came out with, which I don't hate this record, I still would have been more happy that they did that than did nothing. But the fact that I haven't listened to it that much is maybe a testament to just why that is. It just I don't retain a lot of the memorable like parts as I did on their previous records, but yeah, I mean, would it be my? I mean, if I go through the albums of the year for 2020, will it be my album of the year for 2020? I kind of doubt it, but I still think it will be in the top 10. I mean, I am just speculating to think about it. I think part of it is just that sort of stigma I've had with it, that it came out right when it's like I needed a break from music and the world was just kind of going crazy, and we're still obviously still recovering since things have not returned to the sort of normalcy since the lockdown of 2020. But I think you could say it's aged well, and I mean it sounds modern. It doesn't sound, as much as they were trying to draw from the Dark Third especially, it's only partially like the Dark Third. There's a few moments. There's a moment on, I want to say, I think it's Ghost and Typhoon, Ghost or Silent Genesis, where it sounds a lot like The Exact Color. That the piano arrangement's almost the same. That da na na na, da na 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 na. That part on Exact Color. Da na 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 na. That the piano part that's used in that, I was like, oh, there they are, kind of referencing The Exact Color. But yeah, I mean, I like Eupnea. I think maybe, I'm going to go through Above Cirrus later today, and I know that I've kind of looked at the two records, this one a little more favorably, and of course the new record that comes out tomorrow, Coming Up to Conscious. I'm not sure. From my impressions of the singles, that album is less intense and about those sort of almost heavy industrial guitar riffs, as this record and the one that followed it were. But in other words, I'm trying to say that at this point I kind of favor this record over the one after it already. But I'm going to revisit that record. I mean, the other Above Cirrus, I'll talk about that. It's still not without a lot of music I like. So, what's your take on Eupnea, the reunion, return, comeback album from Pure Reason Revolution from the year 2020? I know people that love this record, and actually on Rate Your Music, it's their second highest rated album. Yeah, I mean, still a good record, but I've never fully I've only probably listened to it a grand total of like maybe 25 or 30 times. That kind of tells you. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll be going on to Above Cirrus next, but thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.